Warning, this video contains spoilers for the first 60 episodes of Pokemon Journeys. Good morning everybody, good morning, it's JPR, and welcome back to another video. Okay, so I don't like to be negative, but this is a topic that I've been putting off for quite a while now. I've watched every single episode of the Pokemon anime from its beginning to where it is today. Now, I wouldn't say the Pokemon anime is a standout anime series by any means, as it clearly has its fair share of weaknesses regardless of which series you focus on, but I would say that as a lifelong Pokemon fan, it's always at the very least been consistently entertaining and somewhat knows what to do with itself along the way. I was very hopeful for Pokemon Journeys when it was first revealed at the end of Pokemon Sun and Moon. I thought the concept of traveling from region to region was fantastic. The new art style looked like a great blend of characteristics from many previous series. Popular composer Yuki Hayashi, best known from My Hero Academia, was taking over to score the show and give it a fresh new feeling. It truly felt like this was going to be the revolutionary step that the Pokemon anime needed to take to separate itself further from the games and transform a largely okay anime into a great one. The first couple episodes didn't disappoint, but after about 10 or 15, I began to notice that something was off. While it presented many bold ideas, like Ash's first two captures being Dragonite and Gengar, Go attempting to catch every single Pokemon, and Ash entering the World Championships to fight Leon, beneath the surface I could tell that things weren't properly squared away. Though I didn't know exactly how to describe it at the time, and it seemed like a majority of my friends and other people in the community were largely enjoying the series so far, so I scrapped my first draft of this video and decided to wait things out. Fast forward to a little over a year later, and Pokemon Journeys is now easily the most divisive series of the Pokemon anime by a country mile, and it feels like they can't string together 2 episodes without the online community feeling disappointed or frustrated in some way. It's very clear that I'm no longer alone in my thoughts in this series, and I'm not just playing the role of an uninformed naysayer. There are clearly many issues with this series that people want to see resolved, and I am to address those things in this video. But before I get too far into it, I just want to remind everyone that this entire thing is my opinion, and if you're enjoying Pokemon Journey so far, that's more than fantastic. I'm glad that you're able to find enjoyment in a series that myself and many others have numerous gripes with. By no means do I want this to sound like an objective criticism of Pokemon Journeys, despite the fact this video is likely titled something like The Problems with Pokemon Journeys. Something more subjective would be like why I dislike Pokemon Journeys, but as you can imagine, far less people would be likely to click on that video, so I'm sure you understand. Also, I'm not going to show any footage from the show because they are really strict on copyrights. I don't even really like using screenshots because they've nailed that before too. Plus, this video is probably going to be a bit longer than usual anyway, so I hope you can excuse the lack of editing or relevant footage for this video. Let's begin by addressing the main criticism that many people have towards Journeys, the emphasis on the episodic nature of it. And basically, the producers of this show have gone on record stating that they wanted each episode of Pokemon Journeys to stand on its own with little or no connection to previous episodes, so that fans can jump in at any point and will have an easier time following along. This was presumably done for 2 main reasons. First of all, Journeys was originally airing on Sundays in Japan, a shift that occurred towards the end of Sun and Moon, booting the show from the Thursday time slot that it had since 1997. Since it may be harder for longtime fans to tune in on Sundays, they are less likely to watch consistently. Secondly, it's no secret that in Japan, the Pokemon anime has been in a ratings slide for well over 2 decades now, with each series getting less viewers than the series before it. And Journeys is no exception. Just note that I am not saying that viewership ratings correlate to the quality of the series, since I know some dunderhead in the comments will probably try to make that argument. This is just what happens when you have a long-running anime adaptation of a video game that hit its peak in the 1990s. It's going to get lower over time. But of course, this ties back into the idea that less people than ever before are consistently watching episode to episode. The issue with this approach is that Pokemon was already a fairly episodic series. Ash and friends would meet a Pokemon, Team Rocket would show up and try to catch it, they blast off, and the next episode usually doesn't acknowledge it at all. That was fine because they knew when to shift gears and give us properly fleshed out arcs when the time called for it. Most series, I would say, even in the beginning, had a pretty decent balance of filler and events that move the overall story forward. But in Journeys, there's very little sense of forward momentum. Pretty much the only storyline that has been somewhat sufficiently developed throughout the series is Koharu and her gravitating towards becoming a Pokemon trainer like Ash and Go. But even that's easy to forget about when she goes missing for 5 to 10 episodes at a time, at least in the beginning. In the case of Ash and Go, the episodic nature makes this series feel like it moves at 1,000,000 miles per hour and yet travels nowhere at the same time. Go captures a Pokemon in nearly every episode. Ash completed his full team in only 50 episodes, the third shortest amount of time behind Kanto and Unova, which are both series that moved at a blistering pace. Ash has already entered the great class of the World Championships and has been to every region at least once already. Heck, even the Sword and Shield Darkest Day arc has already come and gone. So much stuff has happened, and yet it feels like nothing has happened. Ash's Pokemon World Championships rank? Yeah, most of those battles have happened off-screen and Ash's rank just fluctuates to whatever's most convenient for the next episode. Go catching Pokemon at a record pace and even the legendary Suicune? Well, I hope you didn't get attached to any of those because barely any of them will show up again. Ash's full team of 6 powerhouse Pokemon? Oh, you mean Pikachu and sometimes Lucario? Dragonite and Gengar are painfully irrelevant to the point where the show has even acknowledged it. Sirfetch'd is finally going through a training arc nearly 30 episodes after it was captured, and Ash's Dracovish hasn't even made a cameo since it was caught 10 episodes ago. Catching Pokemon barely means anything in the series because they hardly ever show up. I assume this is because the producers also stated that one of their goals with the series was to eventually show off all 900 Pokemon at some point. Even if the series ends up being 200 episodes long, which would make it the second longest Pokemon series overall, that still means most Pokemon are probably going to get nothing more than a few seconds of screen time. It's a good idea in theory, but in practice, it just leaves you wondering why you haven't seen any of Ash or Go's notable Pokemon for the past few months. The scope is just too large for its own good. Which brings me to my next point, focus. This series has the least amount of focus in any show I think I've ever seen. We've already talked about the Pokemon and how they don't know which ones to focus on, but even when it comes to developing goals, it's very unfocused. Ash's goal of entering the Masters 8 and fighting Leon is an easy one to get behind, but unlike his gym journeys from the past, this one seems to barely have anything going towards it, and it feels more like an afterthought that they tacked on because they didn't know what Ash's role in this series would be. And again, his rank changing sporadically off-screen makes Ash's progress towards his goal very difficult to measure as a viewer. As for Go, it's abundantly clear that he's supposed to be the main character here, not Ash. And no, I actually don't have a problem with that, unlike a lot of people. I think it's more interesting to explore a brand new character than one who has barely changed for decades now. I'll go ahead and say the character of Go is not the problem here, it's the way that the writers are using him. The producers of the show have outwardly admitted that they have no clue where to take Go's character, specifically when it comes to catching legendary Pokemon and how they can actually measure his progress towards Mew. The series itself seems to barely be focused on what it was presented as, which is a world tour around various regions. 60% of the episodes have taken place exclusively in the Kanto region. The only other region that has gotten more than a handful of appearances is Galar, obviously, since it's the new one. But even there, nothing aside from the World Championships seems to truly matter. The Darkest Day arc was basically a copy and paste of the events from the games condensed into 4 mediocre episodes, except it was even worse because characters like Chairman Rose, Oleana, Sonia, and Leon have barely been established in this anime to begin with. It just came off as the obligatory, oh, we have to advertise the games now arc. I know the Pokemon anime at its core is just one big advertisement for the games anyway, but it's never been as excruciatingly obvious as it was here. Instead of offering more depth to the Galar region and its characters, which, let's face it, it desperately needs, Journeys opts to give us a series of monotonous chores and pointless field trips when it's not blatantly ripping off events from the games. On top of that, you get these random 2-in-1 SpongeBob-style episodes thrown in every once in a while, and it really makes you wonder what they're doing. If there's one series that shouldn't have filler, it's this one. The concepts of region hopping and the World Championships alone give the series so much more potential than ever before. They could bring back old rivals, explore areas that Ash didn't have time to during his first journeys through these regions, introduce characters who never appeared in the anime before, but they almost never tap into that potential. They're opting to go by the same old safe playbook, and it's getting tiresome fast. The next issue is continuity. I'll give Journeys credit, continuity at least exists here, where it was nearly non-existent for most of XY and Sun and Moon, but it is the most shallow, fan-servicey continuity that they could possibly drum up. I think the episode that best encapsulates this is the one where Mewtwo, yes, the one from the first movie and Mewtwo Returns, finally reappears nearly 20 years later. This episode completely ignores the events of Mewtwo Returns and does nothing new or interesting with Mewtwo outside of making him battle Lucario in Cinderace. Ash says Mewtwo like he recognizes him, and that's it. 20 years waiting for some kind of follow-up, and Mewtwo doesn't even give the slightest indication of knowing Ash. You could say that Mewtwo Returns isn't canon, even though it is, and Mewtwo is pretending to not know Ash, but then it wouldn't make any sense that Ash knows Mewtwo since his memory was wiped at the end of the first movie. It's like the writers did the bare minimum amount of research on Mewtwo and threw him into this random standalone episode of Journeys that will have no impact in the series going forward, just so they could raise their ratings for 1 week. Karina also reappeared earlier in the series and it wasn't quite as bad, but still, it's hard to execute a reunion episode and have anything more meaningful than a battle happen if they're only here for 20 minutes. And that's not even taking into account the poor pacing that most of these episodes already have and how much time gets wasted before the plot even gets off the ground. This makes me especially concerned since we know Iris and Gary will eventually be reappearing as well. We've been waiting an exceptionally long time for these characters to come back, but if these are both one-and-done type episodes where Ash has a quick battle, or they waste a quarter of the episode just traveling to the location and making go catch Pokemon we'll never see again, it's going to feel like a gut punch. The best hope we have is that these characters will be tied into the World Championships in some way, which I guess could work for Iris, but Gary Oak is a retired trainer now. Though I'd be surprised if the current staff even remembers that. If this is anything like Mewtwo, they'll just assume that Gary is the same character now that he was in Season 1, because any reference they can make to a series that isn't Kanto is treated like the plague. Even major stuff that should be important in this series, like Ash being the Alola League champion, is never brought up. In series like Advanced or Diamond and Pearl, there would frequently be references to some minor events that happened in the past that made you go, hey, I remember that, and you felt rewarded for being a consistent fan. I get things are a little different now that the anime has over 1,100 episodes, and you can't expect kids today to have seen all of them, but is 1 or 2 throwaway lines referencing something that didn't happen in Kanto gonna kill you? As far as I remember, they've only done this once so far when they referenced Ash vs. Chuck and even showed his Bayleaf on screen. Granted, that's still from the original series. Overall, I think I'd appreciate the continuity of the series more if it just fit into the overall narrative and didn't exist purely as fan service material. Speaking of characters who have been around for a long time and are grossly misunderstood in Journeys, we have Team Rocket. I cannot emphasize enough how much Team Rocket has fallen from grace in the series. I know a lot of people hate Team Rocket and probably don't mind that they don't show up as much anymore or don't use their Pokemon now, but come on, love them or hate them, these guys are a vital part of the show. One of the most endearing qualities about Team Rocket in the past is that even though they're supposed to be the bad guys, they're ironically one of the most affectionate and caring groups towards their Pokemon. Ignoring that one time that Jessie pummeled her Survivor to catch it. This was especially evident in Sun and Moon, where it truly felt like Team Rocket was in top form, even if they didn't appear in as many episodes as they did in the past. In Journeys, Team Rocket's connection to the Pokemon has been completely severed due to the newly introduced Gacha machine, which gives them a pair of random Pokemon every time they use it. I assume that this was done just to help out with the producer's goal of showing off every Pokemon at some point, so whatever Pokemon Team Rocket gets out of the vending machine gets their 2 minutes of screen time. Again, it's another idea that's not bad in concept, but it robs Team Rocket of so much character and they feel like shells of their former selves. I think there's an easy fix for this too. Since all these Pokemon come from the Rocket HQ, why can't they just pull some of their old Pokemon like Mime Jr., Yanmega, or Inkay? I'm not saying they'd have to use them all the time, but bringing back their old Pokemon will restore a lot of their humanity, I would think. Not to mention, it's great continuity for older fans that doesn't feel like blatant nostalgia bait since the gacha is a pre-established concept. But even if Team Rocket did magically get their Pokemon back, they'd still need some work. This is the first time they felt so out of place. In the first 3 series, their goal was simple: capture Pikachu. In Best Wishes, it was to retrieve the Medianite, and then that got derailed, so it just turned into a series of other missions. In Kalos, it was to defeat Team Flare, and in Alola, it was to establish the first Team Rocket base. Here, they just steal Pokemon like in the older days, but they coincidentally run into Ash more often than not, even when he's traveling in distant regions. I feel like they need to be given something else to work with. So those are my major criticisms against Pokemon Journeys, but I'm not going to cry without offering up a few solutions. First of all, it's time to dump the episodic format. Sorry to say it, but you're probably not bringing back those masses of fans who have already left the show. Arcs or no arcs, it's ultimately not going to matter that much. The good news is that the show has already shifted again to a Friday time slot, which could influence their decision to continue down this path. I think it would be great to have mini arcs of 3 to 5 episodes where Ash, Go, and Koharu, that last one is important, travel to a past region to carry out their tasks. Koharu can do research for her father and learn more about her Pokemon, Go can catch more Pokemon specifically native to that region, and Ash can reconnect with his old friends or gym leaders in an effort to raise his World Championships rank. It's hard to do all of these things well in one episode, but given a proper arc, you can make sure everyone's goals are properly attended to. Second, let's use the World Championships to introduce characters more organically to the series. They've already done this to an extent with characters like Bee and Rinto, who appear to be Ash's main rivals so far, but this could extend to past characters like Paul and Alon, or new ones like Bede and Marnie too. I think it would be great to see a large group of rivals all traveling the world at the same time, perhaps even meeting and having mini battle tournaments like the Rivals and Best Wishes used to do. We already know from the Karina episode that these battle festivals exist, so why not take advantage of them? And third, and this is the easiest one, just have Ash carry his dang Pokemon with him. With Go, they can be a little more flexible, and he has more Pokemon, so I don't expect to see them too much, but sooner or later, Ash needs to have his whole team on hand. Before, it felt like Riolu was the only Pokemon he brought with him, and now it's Sirfetch'd. Individual training arcs are nice, but I feel like we need to have a better balance. Plus, I miss the dynamics that Ash's Pokemon used to have among one another. Let them interact and build friendships instead of rotting away in the lab for dozens of episodes at a time. I think if I could leave you with one positive is that since we're getting 3 completely different games in Generation 8, which is a first for the series, that means that we could see many different plots develop as the series continues. Plus, that likely means this series will be a bit longer than the average Pokemon series, which means that 60 episodes in, we're probably still only at the beginning. And nonetheless, I still hope these problems get ironed out sooner rather than later. Again, I believe Journeys has great potential and has already introduced a ton of great concepts, they just need to improve their execution. Thanks for watching today's video. If you enjoyed, make sure you leave a like and subscribe for more videos like this one. I'll see you guys next time.